My definition of a futurist is someone who helps people to think about the future, to make better decisions, and to act better today. And when I look into the future and see some of the things, perhaps the single biggest driver is the move to crowds. And I believe that crowds are the future of almost everything. So it's important to be able to look at that, to explore a little bit the world of crowds and where they're going. So we have over 7 billion people on the planet, 7 billion minds, 7 billion bodies, all of us unique, all of us individuals, all with our own perspectives and intelligence and ways of thinking. And we can all have this passion and energy and alignment in the way in which we bring our ideas and ways of working together to life. And these people are all over the world, certainly here in Europe, absolutely in Asia, in Latin America, all over the world. We have many. We have all these insights and ways of thinking to bring to bear. Now, if we look at the big trends, we can look at the monolithic organizations, the big boxes that we've had in the past. And what we're seeing is a shift to now what I describe as the economy of individuals. They've been shattered into pieces, bringing us to the individual. The meaningful unit of the economy today is not organizations, it's individuals. You, the people you know, the people around you, the people you're working with. And what each of us does, what all of the people in the crowd do, is they contribute. They contribute many things. Ideas, work, opinions, perspectives, money in the case of crowdfunding. And so what we need to do is crystallize, to build the mechanisms whereby all of this extraordinary contributions from many, many people can create amazing things. So I have a simple definition for crowdsourcing, and that's tapping the minds of many. So now that we are so richly connected, there are so many minds, so much imagination that we can tap, crystallize, and create extraordinary things out of. This is my crowdsourcing landscape. In my book, Getting Results from Crowds, which you just search for that and you can see the landscape there, I identify 22 categories of crowdsourcing. This is not a simple thing. A lot of people think about crowdsourcing as one thing, as design competitions or about contributing opinions around things. It is many, many things. And we don't have time to look at all of these things. What I want to do is explore a little bit this entire world and to be able to zoom out from the world of today to look at the big picture of what I think are the 10 domains in which crowds are important, which are work, organizations, business models, capitalism, reputation, media, marketing, innovation, opportunity, and government. So what we'll do is to zoom in to each of these worlds and just spend a moment in each of them. Just skim through the surface of clearly what are extraordinarily rich spaces and see what's happening in those worlds. So first, let's go down and see what's happening in the world of work. And in the world of work, we have individuals working hard, who now, because they are connected, are, amongst other things, competing with everyone else in the world. Whether you're in Amsterdam or Zimbabwe or Bangalore, you are competing with everyone else with talent around the world. So we must be world-class. If we are not world-class, we're a commodity. So if we look at this whole world at large, there are many, many people and many, many workers all working in different ways. So the trick comes is if we are so specialized, we must connect with others. We must collaborate with others. We must bring our talents together with others to be able to create value, to be able to create extraordinary things. And moving on from that, we have now a whole range of marketplaces, ways in which work flows easily, these fluid markets that we have. We have microtasks, these very small things such as recognizing photos or adding a bit of data to something or checking something or translating a phrase. And there are markets which bring these together, very low cost. We have a whole range of service marketplaces, Elance, Freelancer, Odesk. We heard from Matt Barry from Freelancer yesterday, who are creating already now over $1 billion worth of work flowing through these, and in the next years to come, probably quite soon, $10 billion. These are places where work flows, all sorts of kinds of work, any work. You know, I often say that it's everything except hairdressing and massages is now going to become global. But we also have specialist networks. This is not just about commoditized work. It's also more across specialists. So Kaggle, we've heard data science quite a lot in this conference, and this is where the top data scientists compete to win prizes about better analysis, predictive modeling. And the biggest prize on that is a US insurance company offering $3 million for the best analysis of data. We have Vumero, where the financial analysts, people that come out of Morgan Stanley or PwC, do at a reasonable cost, provide their insights to anyone around the world. So if we move on from the world of work and look at organizations, and organizations are clearly fundamentally changing. The transaction costs that Ronald Coase talked about are shrinking all the time, which means that when we have what we look now is that the boundaries of organizations are blurring. The difference, what happens outside organizations, what happens inside organizations are blurring more and more. So the heart of strategy today is to answer a simple question. What happens inside the organization? And what happens outside the organization? And that boundary is changing all the time as we can put so much more of what our organizations does to create value around us. The simple quote by Bill Joy, no matter who you are, most of the smartest people work for someone else. And in fact, in a more recent sort of study, showed that every single domain, every single area, there is no organization that has more than 1% of the talent. And that means that if you're an organization relying solely on your own talent, you're an extraordinary disadvantage to those that are tapping the world outside, open innovation, being able to tap insights and talent from around the world. And if we look now at business processes don't just happen inside organizations. Business processes have to link to other things that are happening outside organizations in various ways. Being able to say the things that are creating value do not just happen inside your organizations, they happen within, across, and beyond those boundaries. So from there, and clearly particular interest to the crowd here, is that of business models. And what I've done is to organize the crowdsourcing landscape into 8 categories of business models. And again, you can go to resultsfromcrowds.com or search for crowd business models, and where I've looked at both the monetization and the success factors for each of these crowd business models. So there's a whole array, and now businesses cannot say, okay, well, this is our business. Oh, how do we include the crowd? How do we tack it on? It doesn't work that way anymore. Business models must start from the crowd. And just to give a few very simple examples, we have data.com, which used to be Jigsaw, which was acquired by Salesforce. And what it does is it has 2 million members which pay it for the pleasure and privilege of donating all of their personal contact data. So everyone they know, all of the phone numbers and emails and so on. Now what that means is that those who subscribe have access to that. Currently, every time somebody moves company, then hundreds and thousands of people have to update their database if they've found out about it. Now, because that is run by the crowd, the first person to know about it can update it, and immediately we have access to the latest information and data. And a great business model in it. giffgaff is a UK-based telephone company, which they say, all of our things we do are created by the crowd. The customer service, the marketing, the support, and the people who contribute from that, the customers are rewarded with money or free time on air or contributions to charity. And we have other ones like Quirky.com, a fantastic example, which is a product company, and all of the products are designed by the crowd, where people say, I've got a great new idea for a product. They submit it. Other people refine it. They add to it. They vote on it. They select the best ones, and the best ones goes into stores like Toys R Us and Target, and they've actually got a deal with Home Shopping Network. So those who have both contributed the ideas and added and refined the ideas are rewarded. They're paid for their contributions over time. And we've also seen today, we've got Babbelverse, which is a crowd-based business model, which is one of the startups outside, being able to bring these new models to bear, tapping the crowds to create value. Now, capitalism, I used to be Global Director of Capital Markets at Thomson Financial, so I've got a perspective on capital markets. And capital needs to go to where it has the most value. If it doesn't, the whole system is broken. But there are so many people in here who are deserving of capital, and you want to have that. Now, Marillion, I don't know what you call them, a glam rock band, they, in the 90s, wanted to do a tour in the United States, but they couldn't get any promoters. So they went to their fans. This was in 97, so they had the internet. They went out to their fans and said, please, would you contribute some money so that we can do a US tour? They raised $60,000, and they did a US tour, and their fans were rewarded. In 2000, Artist Share set up, and they provide a platform for artists to wear. And it was only in 2008 that Indiegogo and then Kickstarter set up crowdfunding, just 4 years ago. And you've already heard yesterday about the Pebble eWatch. It's a e-ink watch. You strap it to your wrist, and it links to your mobile phone. So it gives you not just the time, but also the weather and your Twitter updates and your latest messages. So it's a great product, and it has raised, last count, $6.6 million. It was only February 10th that the first $1 million project was done on Kickstarter, and 2 of them came in the same day. Double Fine Adventure, a game, and also basically an iPhone stand, which was funded for $1 million. Now we have, just in the last couple of months, over $6 million for the top one, 3.3 for the next one, $3 million for the next one. So again, this whole new structure for how money is being raised. Critically important, April 5th, Obama signed into law the Jumpstart Our Startup Businesses Act, which enables crowdfunding for equity. Which means if you have a great idea, then anybody you convince it's a great idea can contribute a small amount. You can get many people to contribute small amounts. And this is an extraordinary enabler for startups, for innovation, for ideas. And so these are really shifting waves of capitalism where the crowd is allocating money to what they want. And this legislation is now going to flow through into other countries from US's lead. Now, I talk a lot about the reputation economy. This is one of the biggest trends we have this decade and beyond, where clearly if we are dealing with an individual, if we are dealing with a business, we'd like to know more about them. And so all of them have contact with many people. So there's this role for an organization which sits in the middle, which is able to aggregate all of the opinions of people to create a reputation measure for each of those organizations, or the organization of the individual. Clearly, we have Yelp, we have TripAdvisor, we have Honestly and the .com, which is a service where people anonymously rate other people and give their opinions on them. Now, we're still just at the beginning of these, but these reputation measures are extraordinarily valuable. These start to provide context to us. So as we know, we have mobile apps, including augmented reality apps, where we can look around us, see the restaurants or the bars, and see how much people like them and choose which ones we choose to wander in. Now that we're having augmented reality glasses, hopefully kicked off by Google's Glass project, means that when we walk up to people in the street, it will not only tell us what their name is and what their Twitter handle it is, but it'll also tell us their reputation. So we'll know whether or not we should say hello to them. And moving on from reputation, we have the world of media. And this is one thing which is pretty clearly being driven by crowds over the last, the last decade or more. We have the whole monolithic worlds of news and television and images and music. And clearly what has happened from the late 90s moving on is that all of these have been shattered into pieces, where we don't just have the big providers or publishers or streamers. We have worlds, many, many, many. The crowds have been creating content, and that's not a news story. That's one of the big shifts, where content is being created by many. Clearly, there's a massive amount of dross in that, but there's also extraordinary gems, things that never would have gone out otherwise, things that wouldn't have been found. So when the crowd looks at that, and this is where we are still in process and still in finding, is where those individuals can find what is fantastic, what is brilliant from all of that. Again, this is a form of reputation measure where the crowds are selecting from, we have now an infinity of content, but the crowds together can find and discover what is truly unique, what is really wonderful, and that's what all of us are doing, initially through Twitter and other platforms, which are going to develop more over time. We have media, clearly, if we want to think about marketing. This idea of how do we use crowds to be able to market things at large. The whole world of TV commercials and how it used to be sort of the 30-second commercials and going to broadcast things to people, even that world has changed. So this is an advertisement for Harley Davidson, which was created by the crowd. Victors and Spoils was an ad agency set up 2.5 years ago by, used to be the strategy director at Crispin Porter Bogusky. And he's have clients like Harley Davidson and Levi's and other large companies. And what they do is they go to not everybody. They have what I call a managed crowd. They have highly talented people that have worked in advertising before. They choose the best of them. They work with them. They bring the client in to be able to create, in this case, the first TV commercial created by the crowd, bringing the ideas together, finessing them and taking them at large. We have the Blur group. And that is a platform where you can go in and instead of going to one agency or getting bids and ideas from 3 or 4 or 5 agencies, you can get them from dozens. There's platforms, there's marketplaces where you can democratize really the availability of talent, making sure you're getting the right comparative pricing and getting the best ideas, which again, they don't come from the few, they come from the many. So going to the many is what brings them in. And Sam Adams at South by Southwest had a beer, which was specially for South by Southwest, that was created by the crowd. The crowd actually designed the beer. Now, it's probably a gimmick in a more sense, because you can't, they have taste levers and how much hops and so on in it, so it's not really creating the beer, but it was a way of engaging customers in various ways and be able to tap their ideas, to get them engaged, to hopefully get them buying the Sam Adams, which comes out the other side. And so now if we look at the top 8 brands in the world, as ranked by Interbrand, all of them are using crowdsourcing in their marketing and in other ways as well, in various guises. Intel has TV commercials created by the crowd. Microsoft is getting videos to help with its teacher outreach program. Coca-Cola has all sorts of initiatives and TVs and marketing which are created by the crowd. All of them are saying, but this is just the very beginning. Clearly, more and more, marketing is not, okay, here's a great idea, let's push it out to all of these people. How do we engage people? It's not about push it, it's about getting the crowd to be engaged, to want to create that, to be part of the message, to be part of this whole movement. From marketing, we move on to innovation, and that's one of the most critical ones, because as I said, innovation can't happen in just a single place. It has to happen beyond that. So you've probably heard the story of Procter & Gamble and their move to open innovation, where from 2000, A.G. Lafley, the CEO, said, we must have half of our innovation outside. So when they wanted to extend the Swiffer range into a Swiffer duster, they found that what they did internally wasn't as good as what they could find externally. So they went outside to create a $90 million a year opportunity. They are open, they are looking, they are seeking what is the best from what there is around the world. We have prediction markets, and these are applied in all sorts of ways. So in Best Buy, for example, and you'll see this process where people inside Best Buy are actually making votes, they're doing trades to be able to predict what the sales are going to be for that organization. Now, these kinds of prediction markets have been applied in pharmaceutical companies regularly and many other companies where the people inside the company can predict what is the success of this product going to be. Is it going to get to market on time? What other resources do we need? So rather than the product manager giving the report, everybody in the organization can see what's going inside, what's going on outside, can work that out and getting that collective intelligence on where the bets should be placed, where things should be happening inside the organization. And we also have amazing situations were like Fold It. Now, Fold It, as you can see here, is a level 47 player of the game Fold It. Now, Fold It is a game where you play with proteins. Proteins are the essence of life, and they can only fold in particular ways. So the game Fold It is where people can go in and they can see, how can this protein fold? How does it not fold? And learning this gives scientists the ability to design new drugs, to be able to find new ways to help people. And it's these kinds of opportunities that we have through aggregating people's attention, aggregating their talent through structures like gaming. I think one of the biggest shifts in the world is between the haves and the have-nots. This connection is extraordinary, yet it polarizes in many ways. There's many people that are not connected, they're not able to benefit, and whilst we, all of us, the elite, really, are taking advantage of this, many of them aren't. So in addition to the service marketplace I mentioned, there's a platform called Samasource. And Samasource is specifically designed essentially as a fair trade service marketplace. They find people who they're able to give work to in developing countries. They find clients in the developing world who are able to give that. And so these are ways in which we can equalize, we can give opportunity, we can give work. And developing countries now are going to rely more and more on the incomes and the possibilities of these worlds. We have VizWiz, and that's one of my favorites, where this blind gentleman is taking a photo with his iPhone of these socks. He then speaks into it and says, what color are these socks? And within 30 seconds, somebody from a whole pool of people around the world will type in, the one on the left is black and the one on the right is white and gray, and that then speaks it back, and it says it to him. So, for example, they go into the cupboard in their kitchen. They can say, which is the can of soup? And they can use a photo. So the crowds are lending their eyes to blind people to be able to do these things. This is an extraordinary way in which we can equalize opportunity through these tools. And finally, we have government. Now, government, I think, goes beyond what we think of government today. Government needs to be something which is about how do we together create our lives. Now, clearly, crowds have always been what shapes government. And we've seen that in Egypt, where these crowds in Tahrir Square have changed the government, and many other countries in the regions around them. So, but they have been amplified. I always believe that I talk about social media as the amplifier of our voices, of our expressions. And that's what's happened where these crowds have made themselves felt over time. We have, for example, in Iceland, the recent constitution of Iceland was crowdsourced. All of these people are there to be able to contribute to the crowdsourcing of the Icelandic constitution. It was also on Facebook and another online wiki. So we are forming policy as crowds. The New Zealand Police Act, quite a few years ago, was actually shaped on a wiki. So collectively, we are not just voting for people and saying, okay, go do it until next time we vote you in or vote you out. We are collectively making things happen. Clearly, the information the government has, the many departments of the government have, is our information. So when they create a very simple mechanism, such as an APIs, the proliferation of innovation creates all of these applications. We can access, we can add value through what the government provides us, through what our government provides us. We tend to think of the government and us, but the government must be us. We must shape the government. And beyond this, clearly, is the shift to participatory democracy, which will have its struggles on the way, but absolutely we need to be able to create that, to take control, to become more the government, to be the government which controls us. So if we then zoom out, we've seen these worlds, the worlds in which crowds apply of work, organizations, business models, capitalism, reputation, media, marketing, innovation, opportunity, and government. So let's zoom back into the world, the Earth, and see that, in fact, we live in a global brain. The people on the planet are as the neurons in the brain. We are now so richly connected. This is an old dream. This is an old story. The ancient Greeks used to say that together we can have a collective intelligence. And just as we can imagine flying through the brain today, the people and our profiles, it's only just in the last few years that we are so richly connected that the messages that flow between us really make us, all of us, and our connections like a global brain. Again, it doesn't have necessarily value in itself. We must distill the value. We must find the value from which this flow, this connections can truly create collective intelligence. We can together be more intelligent than we are separately. It's an extraordinary ambition, yet that is something which is part of the human race, I believe, moving forward. So this gentleman, this wild-looking guy, that's John C. Lilly. If you saw the film Altered States from a while ago, it was based on him. He was a scientist who explored, with amongst other things, human-dolphin communication and taking LSD and sensory deprivation tanks and other ways of exploring consciousness. And he had a dream that we can achieve not just global intelligence, but a global consciousness, that we can be so richly connected in our thoughts that, in fact, our consciousness can be something beyond us. Again, this is an age-old dream, yet we are getting closer to the technologies that will enable us to achieve it. Now, one of my publications of my group of companies is futureofsex.net, where we explore the future of sex, and there's many interesting aspects of that: virtual sex, remote sex, robots, immersive entertainment, and so on. But if we look at just a little bit beyond the immediate, there is a potential to actually touch the pleasure senses of our partners through technological means, to be able to have that intermediate, to be able to actually stimulate ourselves, which raises the potential, that's not immediately here, that we can create a crowd orgasm. Imagine what that would be like. So these are some of the possibilities and the potentials that we think, what is the potential of crowds? These are some of the things that we can dream about. Now, Marshall McLuhan, great visionary. One of the things that he said is that media is an extension of our senses. And what it means is, for example, TV. Every TV camera is an extension of our eyes. It enables us to see where we are not today. Radio is an extension of our ears, where we can hear where we aren't today. Today, crowds are the extension of our capabilities. They give us so much more potential. There is so much more that we can achieve through crowds, and that's extension of who we are that is a real possibility. Now, we live in this richly connected world with talent everywhere, and I'm sure some of you will be interested in how I created this visual presentation. This is, in fact, I've been aspiring to do an entirely moving visual presentation for some years, and this is, in fact, the first time I've done this. And it's enabled by the crowds. Something like this not long ago would have cost tens of thousands of dollars to create. Now, through the crowds, it's possible to be able to create this motion graphics presentation. So I believe we're at the beginning of an era of fully motion, fully moving presentations. The old present PowerPoints with bullet points, I hope, are of the past. So I've set a starting point, and I would invite you to go out and to create better and better fully motion graphic presentations. Certainly this, for me, was just a starting point, and want to be able to go beyond and to continue to improve that so that the visual, moving images are part of the immersive world of how we communicate messages, how we move beyond. So I truly believe that we are at the dawn of a new era, that crowds give us so much more capabilities. And the people in this room, all of you, are the ones who will do that, to be able to create new business models, to be able to create new forms of marketing, to be able to create new opportunities for people around the world, to be able to create extraordinary things. I invite you to create the future from crowds. Thank you.
Thank you.